Hey guys, Mr. K here. In today's movie recap, we follow the story of a man named Django, played by Jamie Foxx. It takes place in the Wild West, where Django and his friends are being transported to their new owner by two idiots known as the Speck Brothers. During nightfall, they bump into a mysterious man in a dentist cart. The mysterious man introduces himself as Dr. King Schultz. He states that he was looking for the Speck brothers and wants to buy one of their slaves. He then asks if any of the slaves can help identify a trio of wanted fugitives named the Brittle Brothers. Django yells out from behind. After confirming that Django isn't lying, he offers to buy Django, but the two morons threaten him, forcing him to retaliate. He kills one of them while the other one gets trapped under his horse. Then King frees Django and tells him to grab their gear for the trip ahead. Django, being the legend that he is, decides to take revenge as well. What a savage. After creating a bill of sale for Django's ownership, King tosses some money on him and heads out, paying for both Django and his horse. Before he does so, he frees the remaining slaves, who then take their revenge on the Speck brother. The duo arrive at Dough 3 El Paso, where the locals stare at them. As the two head into a bar, the bartender refuses to serve Django and runs out. King tells him to bring the sheriff as he runs. Here, King reveals that he is a bounty hunter, licensed by the government, and his job is to hunt down fugitives and bring them to justice, dead or alive, for money. He then reveals that the Brittle brothers have changed their names and that he needs someone that has seen their faces. He even offers Django his freedom along with a horse and $75 if he helps identify them for him. At the time, $75 was a lot. They are interrupted by the sheriff, who acts like some badass and orders them to leave his town. King whips out his revolver and takes him out. This scares the townsfolk, who in turn call the Marshal. The Marshal surrounds the bar and asks both of them to come out. However, King, being as cunning as he is, says that he has an important message for the Marshal and would prefer not to be shot on sight when he comes out. After the Marshal jokingly agrees, the two head out with their hands up. Here, King reveals on a piece of paper that the sheriff was actually a wanted fugitive named Willard Peck, and that if anyone wants to do something, they will have to face the government. This shocks everyone. He then politely asks the Marshal for his $200 reward so he can leave. This guy's so slick. Later on, as the two are relaxing, Django opens up to the king, telling him about his past, saying that he and his wife Broomhilda were punished for getting married, and that their previous owners sold both of them separately. Django further reveals that his wife can speak German, which intrigues King. Later on, King makes up a plan to break into a plantation that he thinks the Brittle brothers are hiding in. He says he will pretend to be a slave trader with Django as his valet. The two are greeted by the owner, Big Daddy Spencer. Yeah, that is his actual name. Spencer is offended by Django and orders him to get off the horse, but then King steps in and offers to buy a slave for $5,000. Upon hearing this, Spencer's attitude completely changes and he starts welcoming both of them. King asks Django to stay outside and look around for a bit. He even assigns a maid to escort him around the place. When Django's outside, he asks the maid about any suspicious guests, three brothers in particular. She informs him that three mysterious brothers did indeed show up last year, and she points out to one of them. Django looks to confirm it, and then we cut to a flashback where Django is begging the three brothers not to harm his wife, but they still do, and they force him to watch. The maid then points out the location of the two other brothers, and Django makes it in time right before they're about to whip someone. Big John is surprised to see him, and Django quickly takes him out. Then Django whips the other sibling, telling him to keep laughing while he does it. Jeez. Django has no chill. After he finishes him off, King shows up and Django points to a third brother, and King quickly dispatches of him. Shortly after, Mr. Big Daddy himself shows up with his crew. King reveals who they actually are and his job to hunt them, and Big Daddy has no choice but to let them go. But this isn't the last time we see Mr. Big Daddy. In fact, later on that day, Big Daddy and his crew storm the dentist cart, and knowing King by now, he already set up a trap for them. The explosion kills off most of the crew, but Big Daddy is still alive and kicking. King hands Django the rifle, and Django takes out Big Daddy in one clear shot. This impresses King. Afterwards, King asks Django what he plans on doing with his freedom. Django states that he will rescue his wife. King offers to help Django out since he feels a bit responsible for him. In return, King only wants Django to help him out with a few bounties during the winter, to which Django happily accepts. Then we have a montage where King trains Django with target practice, and the two are seen hunting down criminals. King even goes as far as to teach Django how to read and write. After the winter passes, the two arrive in Mississippi, where they narrow down Broomhilda's location. They find out that she is owned by a notorious businessman named Calvin Candy. The two make their way to Candy's clubhouse. Here, King pretends to be a slave trader again, with Django as his talent advisor. They're taken up to Candy's ballroom. As they enter, they realize Candy is actually a spoiled brat and very obnoxious, which was not what they were expecting. Here, they realize that Candy specializes in Mandingo trading. Mandingos are slaves raised to fight for entertainment and betting purposes. After the scene ends, Candy sets his eyes on Django, and like Big Daddy, he too is offended by Django. But King steps in and offers 12,000 for a Mandingo, which tempts Candy to accept and invite them back to his home. Afterwards, they accompany Candy and his team back to their plantation, which is called Candyland by the way. And yeah, that is its actual name. Along the way, Candy's men mess with Django, and Django isn't one to take shit from them, so he throws one of them off their horses. Candy steps in before anything serious happens and they continue their journey. However, this time Django is constantly harassing Candy's crew and his slaves for the remainder of the journey. What a guy. Right before they reach the estate, they spot a Mandingo named D'Artagnan being chased by hounds. He begs Candy to let him go as he cannot fight anymore. Candy replies that he cannot do that, otherwise everyone will want to do the same and he won't profit that way, so he releases the hounds on D'Artagnan to set an example. Django and King force themselves to act cool and watch on. Soon afterwards, they arrive at Candyland. Here they are greeted by Candy's butler, Stefan, played by Samuel Jackson. Stefan, much like his master, is also offended by Django. Then we are introduced to Candy's widowed older sister Laura. Before they enter, King asks about Broomhilda, and Stefan informs them that she's in a hot box for trying to escape. Candy then orders Broomhilda to be released and sent to King's room. Here, we get a glimpse of Django getting emotional seeing his wife after such a long time. Later that night, Broomhilda is cleaned up and taken to King's room. He speaks with her in German and tells her that they're here to rescue her. After he reveals his plan to her, he signals Django to come in and Broomhilda faints at the sight of Django. Afterwards, during dinner, while they are being served, Stefan notices Broomhilda constantly smiling at Django. He then confronts her in the back room and realizes that something is up when he figures out that Django and Broomhilda share the same marks on their faces. Meanwhile, King offers Calvin $12,000 for a Mandingo and will return in a few days with the paperwork. However, as a sign of good faith, he wants to take Broomhilda with him. Right before Calvin can agree, Stefan steps in and insists Calvin to come see him on the back, where he explains their plan and how they plan on swindling him for Broomhilda. This pisses off Calvin. When Calvin returns, he asks his sister to leave, and he brings out the skull of a former slave. He then reveals that he knows of their plan and that Broomhilda will suffer the same fate if they don't pay him right now. King agrees and they start drawing up some paperwork for Broomhilda. After the paperwork is signed, King comments on Calvin's taste in music, indirectly calling him stupid and that he isn't worth his time. With his ego hurt, Calvin stops King and orders him to shake his hand. King, who is unfamiliar with this gesture, finds it insulting and flips on Calvin, shooting him in the chest. King apologizes to Django for screwing up the mission and is then shot by the bodyguard, which sends him flying. Django grabs his gun and all hell breaks loose. The fight comes to an end when Django surrenders after Stefan holds Broomhilda hostage. Then we see Django chained upside down, about to be tortured. Stefan steps in and changes the plan. He states that this will kill him too fast, and instead he wants Django to suffer more. So he sold Django to a mining company, where he will spend the rest of his days working endlessly. Fast forward, we see Django and a bunch of others being transported to the mines. Here, we also get a cameo of the director himself, Quentin Tarantino, in case you missed it. Django strikes up a conversation with them and claims he has a bounty worth 7,000 back in Candyland and that he will happily give them most of it if they allow him to return to Candyland and collect it. The captors ask the other slaves, who confirm that Django is indeed a bounty hunter. After a small chat, the three morons release Django and immediately hand him a gun. He unloads it on them. Like, what did they expect? Django then grabs their gear and heads back to Candyland. First thing he does is visit the ranchers with the hounds. After he gives them the secret password, he politely enters and avenges D'Artagnan. As he heads to the manor, he stops at a nearby shack where he finds King's body. He grabs Broomhilda's freedom papers from him and bids farewell to his mentor. Afterwards, he frees his wife and gets her to a safe location and continues with his plan. As Candy's family are returning from his funeral, they hear someone singing inside, and much to their surprise is Django. He takes out the three ranchers and even shoots Laura. By the way, Laura did have a hand in all of this, so she wasn't innocent. He then asks Stefan a question whether a handicapped slave has ever set foot in Candyland before. He then says that it's Stefan's lucky day and shoots him in the kneecaps. Stefan cries out in pain while shouting insults at Django, while Django simply lights a fuse and walks out. Outside, Django and his wife watch the mansion explode into bits, and this puts an end to this movie, with both of them riding off with their horses. And that concludes the movie. So what do you think of this film? Please leave your comments below in the comment section. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please consider dropping a like and subscribing to not miss out on any future content. Apart from that, have a great day, and I'll see you next time.